Hey, you're listening to the Matt Uyeno podcast. Super excited to be here. Playing around with a little bit of different lighting. I'm so new to this whole 3-point lighting or 2-point lighting. Got lots of shadows here. I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but that's kind of what this podcast episode is about today. Because today I'm going to talk about why you need to be an expert at not being an expert. That is the secret to success. And I just want to preface this episode by saying I am one of the worst offenders when it comes to not taking action because I'm trying so hard to be optimal. I'm trying so hard to have the best equipment. I just did a mini tour of this podcasting setup. This microphone isn't even meant for podcasting. It's meant for video calls or whatever. It's like a $40 mic. This light over here, my mom actually bought for me. It's like $15 on Amazon. That was a broken light from Target or something. And I'm using my iPhone, a janky tripod, and a step stool to record this thing. And I think a lot of people get so hung up that they think they need all these things, but the fallacy is that more equipment makes you more equipped, that more resources set you up for better success. And look, don't get me wrong, good equipment helps a lot. Having resources help a lot. But the mindset that you need to realize, or the perspective that you need to realize, is that all of these things, resources, equipments, techniques, strategies, blah, 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 all of these things are extensions of you. And you are the foundation of whatever equipment or resources you are using. Just like I talked about in my last podcast, it's, if you're all about I need this, that, this, and that before I get started, you really don't. It's paralysis by over-analysis. Because even if you somehow just dropped in your lap and suddenly you had all the good equipment that you needed in order to get started or to be optimal or whatever, because you are the foundation of the tools that you use in your life, those tools aren't going to be used to its fullest potential. You are the best investment. You are the greatest asset to whatever goals or aspirations that you have in your life. It's you. You are the foundation of these goals and tools. And so don't run around thinking that you need to have all of these things in order to get started. In fact, and like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I was one of the worst offenders. And I actually racked up an embarrassing amount of credit card debt because I couldn't get it through my thick skull that you don't need all these expensive softwares and CRMs in order to do business. You don't need that stuff. And again, the fallacy is in thinking that these things make you better. They don't make you better. You make the things better, if that makes sense. Just gonna take a sip of coffee. And here's the thing that's gonna set you apart from everybody else. This is what's gonna set you apart from your competition. The thing that's gonna set you apart of the competition is you being an expert at not being an expert. The competition is, and I've learned this from Andy Frisella, the MFCEO Project podcast, super good podcast. One of the things he said that stuck out to me is the competition is fiercest at the bottom, right? Everybody's trying to get in, everybody's trying to get attention and all these things. And, if you want to rise above it, there are two types of competition. There's yourself and there's other people. Super simple. If you want to rise above everybody else, you need to be the expert at not being an expert. And what does that mean? That just means that you are the most resourceful. That doesn't mean you have the most resources. It means you're the most resourceful. You need to be the one that's able to take action with the least amount of equipment, with the least amount of tools. Because if you're a person who can take action despite not having things, you have that mindset, you have the ethic to outwork anybody else, because that shows that you are someone who is fearless. Actually, no, not fearless. I'm not really a big fan of that word. You are someone who is courageous. Being an expert at not being an expert takes courage. It requires you to confront your ego. It requires you to look like an idiot sometimes. If I'm honest, like a lot of the times when I post something on Instagram or this podcast, like there's that thing in my mind that's saying, oh, you're dumb, like no one's gonna listen to this, and it's so corny, it's so cheesy, it's cringy. But you know what, like part of being an expert at not being an expert is part of that is being able to produce, even if what you produce may not be the best. You need to give yourself permission to suck. You got to give yourself permission to suck. You have to have the compassion, the self-compassion to allow yourself to fail and to learn from that. Because here's kind of like a backwards idea, is that the more self-compassion you have, the stronger you can be. Because think about it. If you're someone who's overly critical about themselves or to themselves, do you think someone who's overly critical about themselves feels empowered? Do you think that person feels like they can make a difference in this world? No, because they're too busy. Oh, I suck. Blah, 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 blah. Look, if you find yourself being overly critical about yourself, if you find yourself saying, I need this, I need that, before you get started, politely and kindly tell yourself to shut the hell up. Because you are probably a little bit more capable than you think you are. You are probably more equipped than you think you need to be. Be an expert at not being an expert. Be willing to produce and be willing to give yourself permission to suck and to fail and have self-compassion, because forgiveness on yourself is something that is so powerful. Resentment is not going to get you anywhere. Anger toward yourself is not going to get you anywhere. They can be great short-term motivators for whatever it is you want, but in the long term, it's just going to eat you alive. If you're able to have a healthy, non-narcissistic self-love, you can weather any storm. And honestly, the biggest storms that you're going to have to weather is the storms that happen up here, is the storms that you need to deal with in your mind that most of the time are self-inflicted. You are your worst enemy. And the reason why you're your worst enemy is because you're too hard on yourself. And I'm not saying to coddle yourself and say, everything I do is fine. I'm saying be honest with yourself. Sometimes honesty really sucks. Sometimes you honestly suck. But part of being honest and being in tune with reality is that, the truth is the way, and the way is the truth. And the thing about that is, if you can embrace reality, you have a foundation on which to build your actions upon. Overly critical thoughts about yourself might have a grain of truth. Overly grandiose thoughts about yourself might have a little bit of truth, but they're not in tune with reality. So, one thing that I've had to learn kind of the hard way again was just take action. Just do the damn thing. Stop waiting to get, equipped. Stop waiting for perfect timing, because it's not going to happen. Whatever it is you're trying to do, you have to be that unstoppable force. Because if something as simple as, let's say, like I have this ring light here, right? This is like $15 on Amazon. Imagine if I let a shipping delay of this thing stop me from producing a podcast? Like, what does that say about my work ethic? And just think about the things that have stopped you in the past, right? Oh, my makeup's not good today, so I'm not gonna film a vlog, or like, oh, I just don't feel like writing my blog today, or I don't feel like working on my business. Like, are you an unstoppable force? That's what you need to be. See, people who have this spirit of the unstoppable force aren't gonna let things like lack of equipment, lack of good timing, lack of praise and validation from other people stop them. People with that unstoppable spirit are gonna go through the whatever, like the bushes or the fire, regardless of the situation. That's how you win, because people with this unstoppable spirit are experts at not being an expert, and that's what you need to be. You need to be an expert at not being an expert. So again, anytime you find yourself thinking, I need this, I need that, I need good timing, tell yourself, just shut up and take one step in front of the other. Just do that, right? You need to be an oak tree in the storm. The oak tree is just there, it just goes, because consistent imperfect action will always beat occasional good action. And yeah, this is something I've had to learn the hard way, because for me, I'm a sprinter. I do these hard sprints of work, I get tired, and then I poop out, and then I don't do anything for a while. And to this day, I still struggle with that, which is kind of why I made this podcast, because I'm really talking to myself here. You know, a lot of these episodes are me talking to myself, because yeah, I just need that kick in the butt from myself sometimes. So if there's anything that I hope you get from this podcast, is be an unstoppable force. Don't let petty things like lack of good timing, like a lack of resources or whatever, to stop you. What would a person with an unstoppable spirit do in your situation? Ask yourself that, and then go be that unstoppable force. So that's all I got today. Quick one, fueled by coffee. Yeah. And in other news, I got this cool mic stand thingy and a new mic that I'm super stoked to use. That'll be in the next episode. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Go be an expert and not being an expert. Go be an unstoppable force and go kill it.